mountainous percentage and their feathers flying high. And the injury list keeps growing. This week is West Coast champion Chris Mainwaring, whose career has been threatened by another knee injury.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us on our round 2 edition of Football Feedback. I'm Peter Donegan, and we have another packed program to get through tonight. Well, it hasn't taken Malcolm Blight long to create waves as coach of the Crows. His attack on his players after Saturday's loss to Richmond had headline writers in a frenzy. A little later, we'll be crossing live to Adelaide to get the latest from Crows football manager John Reid. In contrast, their feathered counterpart Collingwood couldn't be travelling any better. 2 massive wins had the Magpies sitting pretty, and Collingwood midfielder Scott Russell will be joining us tonight to talk about their great start to the season. But before we do any of that, let me introduce my co-host, Dermott Brereton, looking calm, cool and collected as always, Dermott.
Just made it in, and I can confirm I will have a haircut this week, all right? You heard it first next to you, Scoop.
That's good. You haven't been taking the angry pills like the coaches this week, have you?
Oh, no, why do you say that?
Oh, they were just unbelievable. Blighty and Terry Wallace.
What about Blighty's comment? That is the most scathing remark I've ever heard of a coach in my whole time of viewing or being involved with league football. I don't think the kid can come back from here. And the worst thing is, he does want to get rid of Pittman at the end of the year, he's worth nothing. He's not worth a 4th round draft choice. Now, if the coach reckons he is the worst ruckman he's ever seen, so who's going to swap him for a 4th round?
Yeah, very true. Well, one man who has been covering a lot of media conferences in his time is also with us, the chief football writer from the Sunday Age, Rowan Connolly. Have you ever heard anything like that?
I must say no. I wish I was there, I've got to say. I was at Geelong where Gary Ayres' press conference was considerably shorter, but judging by his tone, about as angry, and Mick Malthouse was just Mick Malthouse. So I think the coaches are on the angry pills at the moment, Dermot. I don't know what's going on.
They're trying to educate the media, I'd say.
Well, really? Is that right? Some of us like to think we're reasonably educated already.
Into their way of thinking.
Oh, okay.
How about I put that stipulation on the end?
We're just taking it week by week.
Very good.
By the way, Gary Lyon will be joining us too, but unfortunately Barmy's kept him in after school again tonight, so he'll be with us very shortly. But whilst Blighty might have given the players a bit of a burst, one coach who is under the pump at the moment, that word, the C word, crisis, has already been mentioned about this man, Stan Alves.
Yeah, he's in a real load of trouble. Actually, the absolute truth, around Christmas time, just before they reappointed Stan, I was sounded out personally if I would like to be interviewed for the St Kilda job, and I said, you're kidding. You've got to get some better cattle on the paddock before you'd like to start working with them. So it's not as if they haven't been thinking for a while, but I'd imagine in realistic terms he'd have 4 weeks, I would say, to make some market improvement. Even if he doesn't win a game in 4 weeks, if he has 4 weeks of losses of that magnitude, he's in real trouble.
I reckon they really created a rod for their own backs with this arrangement anyway, because, I mean, as soon as they lost a few games in a row, they were going to come under that sort of pressure.
He's actually, from all the guys I've spoken to, they quite like him as a coach. He's not too lenient on them. He's got some, well, I suppose every coach comes with his own quirks and ploys which are unusual compared to other coaches, but they quite the players hold Stan in quite high regard.
Well, as we saw, 68 games Stan Alves has been in charge for, and last year was his best year with 10 wins in 96. And there you have it, the first 2 games under each season under Stan Alves, the Saints have lost. And of the 42 losses under Alves, 17 have been by more than 50 points. Are we getting a bit carried away with this, Rowan? Because it was only a kick in the first game. And yesterday was a lamentable performance, but they were pretty close to Hawthorn, and they could have been 1-1.
Well, it really does remind me of what happened with Terry Wheeler back in 1994. He lost the first 2 games, the first one very narrowly, the second one they copped a caning. But same thing, I mean, it worked out right for them, but I think that's the way coaching's going now. You lose 2 or 3 games on end and the microscope's on you. I think,
but more so at the start of the year, because if you lose them then, people are saying you haven't prepared them right. If you fall into the, the humdrum of the season going through it, things will motor along as they are. But at the start of the year, you'd expect your performers to be really having a crack right at the start. I mean, North Melbourne in 93 were the same, and every year at this time, the first 2, 3, 4 rounds, you can almost set your watch by the fact that some coach is going to be under the pump to lose his job.
You do just sense with St Kilda that they're sort of trying to have their cake and eat it too. I mean, they don't want to change coaches again, they want to get a bit of continuity there, but then if they really had full confidence in Stan Alves to be the man to take them into the finals, they'd appoint him regardless, wouldn't they?
Now, we spoke a lot about injuries last week, and unfortunately one serious injury occurred at Kardinia Park on Saturday to the veteran Chris Mainwaring, and things don't look good for him.
No, he's in fact he's gone. We've just heard from Perth a short while ago. He's basically got to have a knee reconstruction. He's snapped the anterior cruciate ligament, which is the big one. So he's gone, and he's out for the rest of the year. He's had a press conference and vowed to come back.
Thanks, Dick.
Thanks, Dick.
That's very nice.
And he's vowed to come back next year, but big blow for him. I mean, he and Matera, I still think, are probably two of their most important 3 or 4 players.
He was sort of like the archetype for this type of player that they've got, the Cousins, Schofield type player. These blokes that are 5'11", 6 foot midfielders, and do they run, but they're put together too. They run the same distances or better than their opposition, but they're just bigger and stronger. There's been suggestion around for a while that it isn't all natural, but you can't point the finger.
But care to elaborate on that?
No, I don't think we should.
They are fantastic athletes, all those guys, and he was like the prototype for those guys.
At 31 years of age, do you reckon that might just about be the end of the road for him? Well, he is pretty fit.
He is fit. He's one of these blokes, though. He can go out and have a drink, front up to training the next morning, and run pants off everybody in the time trial. So you'd expect him that he's one of these guys. I reckon he could come back from a knee injury in 20 weeks, which will put him out of this year, but it'll give him a full pre-season next year. I wouldn't write him off. He's such a good athlete.
Now, one of the other big talking points from Kardinia Park was the collision between McIntosh and Sanderson, and a report came out of this. Now, should this have been a report?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I was at the game, and I remember watching it thinking, if McIntosh doesn't go here, he's going to get dragged. Sanderson just did what he had to do, but I'm pretty sure they paid no free kick there. So I think he's had a bit of thought in hindsight and brought out the bull.
Look, having fairly extensive grounds in the tribunal, or the time's up there's no way he was going for the ball. He obviously thought he could reach it. The kick was directed to him, and he thought, I can make this. At the last split second, he's changed his mind and said, make a contest for it. It's crude. He tucked his arm in, so he was never going to, didn't elbow him or anything. It was all legitimate in terms of contact. There was no elbow. He was too late. I would say it is the equivalent in riding terms of a careless riding charge. He's been crude the way he's made him earn the kick, but I don't think there was, real malice or, nastiness in it. He wanted to make contact, make him earn it. It went horribly wrong for him.
Don't you get past the point, though, where you are committed and you can't possibly pull out of the context?
There's no doubt about that, and he was just crude how he ran it. What you can still do if you're a bigger guy like that, probably letting something out of the trade book here, but if you run out like that and he's running back, you could make out you're going for it and you could full chest him. It still would hurt you, but your chest hitting a bloke on the side of the head from side on, that'd keep you clear. There's no action to make out you're going to wipe him out. You're making really strong contact. You're going to fell him. He goes down to the ground and you've committed yourself.
If you were the coach of that side and McIntosh had pulled out and not made the full contact, would you have been unhappy with him?
Yes, no doubt.
I'm sure that argument's going to come up at the tribunal. One person joining McIntosh at the tribunal will be Darren Jarman, and in contrast, this didn't look terribly good. Here it is in slow motion. We can't actually show you the contact, but looks as though he might have a few problems here.
Sir Arnold Brightus put one on Glenn Hawker like that in the preliminary final once. Looks a bit similar. It's a bit unlike Jars, though, isn't it?
Oh, look, well, I shouldn't say anything. It might prejudice the decision. I don't like to see anybody go down, but Jars was, if the line for being reported is X amount, he was pushing to X minus 1/1000th. He was upset on the weekend. He had several different opponents who were all paying pretty close attention. And look, for such a beautifully skilled player, I think Blight's comments on Pittman were misdirected. I thought Darren Jarman showed a very undisciplined game and actually committed a few sins which cost turnovers, which cost goals to Richmond.
Justin Crawford's also going to be up at the tribunal. He had a bit of an altercation with Norris at Subiaco yesterday. And you don't really see the contact, but
we can imagine it.
Yeah. And the roar of the crowd that goes up is normally a pretty good indicator in those situations too, when it's just off the ball. Speaking of injuries, Hargraves, this was a bad one at Optus Oval on Saturday, and it didn't look that much, but when you watch it from the Optus Vision camera here, this really does look terrible. Watch his left shoulder.
Ooh.
Yeah, that doesn't look good and terribly
looks
painful.
Straight at it, doesn't he? Yeah, he just looks straight back at it as if to say, somebody's standing on me with a stop in there at the moment. There's an amazing thing once I saw with Jimmy Morrissey, Hawthorn Premiership player. He, first time I saw him do his pop his shoulder out, he was like somebody'd shot him from the grandstand. He was ouching and ahhing and that. He did it 4 times in 1 year, and by the end of it, I was coming back through the reserves, and Jimmy was doing the same thing. He popped it out in a reserves match. He walked over to the fence, hung onto it, and did a little jump and popped it back in himself. It definitely gets easier for you as you go along.
What, had he been watching Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon? He
Exactly
just used
the same thing. He walked over, held onto it, got onto his tiptoes, and just clicked it back
Good for
in.
the spectators.
Oh, I looked at it and thought, you're kidding, Jimmy. Yeah, it was amazing.
Well, the word on Hargraves is, I think, somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks. Simon Cox, the other one, who they were a bit worried about, actually went into hospital for some internal checks. He's been given the all clear, so I think he'll be okay within the next week or so.
Now, a couple of Bomber injury problems too, involving Dean Wallace and Paul Barnard, and Wallace and Cummings got entangled there, and I think Cummings might have had a second go at him. What's the latest with Dean Wallace?
Well, it's not too bad, actually. They reckon it's he's hyperextended his elbow, whatever that means, and he's going to miss 1 or probably 2 weeks at worst. But this one's a more serious one. Paul Barnard's actually broken a bone in his foot. The X-rays today have confirmed that, and he'll probably miss at least 4 weeks, possibly up to 6. And I think it might be a bigger loss for Essendon than people imagine, because played well last week, I thought, played well, started really well again yesterday, and he really looked like he was going to do that job off the half-back flank for him. Very aggressive, straight-ahead player.
Yeah, he's a big loss. He will be a big loss for them. I actually asked Hawthorn, why did you let Barnard go? He's one bloke who will give you a real bit of go, and they said Essendon didn't want anyone else. They wanted Mark Graham or Barnard, no one else in the swap for Salmon. So they said we desperately needed Salmon, so we had to let him go. He was the choice before Mark Graham.
What about the situation with Craig O'Brien on the weekend, fronting up for the Swans? Now, he was the subject of an investigation the week before. Eventually, they charged him with striking Daniel Metropolis, but here he is fronting up because the case still hasn't been finalised yet.
Yep, and it's a real worry, and it's disappointing, actually, because I think after the kerfuffle in grand final week last year, we all sort of thought, well, from now on they'll be conducting these investigations very promptly. And I keep going back to the grand final too. I mean, had Sydney won that match, Andrew Dunkley played a key role in stopping Wayne Carey, I'm sure North would have at least considered challenging the result of the game legally. I mean, when you've got guys possibly playing in games that subsequently they are suspended from playing in, that they shouldn't have played in, you're getting into very murky waters there. And the way the courts are playing a role in football at the moment, as we've seen the last week, who's to say this won't happen more and more?
Yeah, I don't think I've really got an opinion. I'm a bit of a fence sitter there.
No?
I'll see which way the tide turns in future and say I'll go with that one, Scoot.
It did seem to be a long time, though. I mean, the match was played, on the Saturday night?
But they have made a few blues, hence the Dunkley scenario. So they've now taken it off their investigators and put it in hands of the legal firm, Brownie, and so there's no recourse onto them at a later date, such as Dunkley, and that's just the way they're going. I really reserve my opinion on how it's going to pan out.
There's a lot of toing and froing with the whole process now, and I know they've tried very hard to formalise it over the last few years, but maybe now we're getting to the stage where there has to be one person whose sole job it is just to coordinate the reports and the investigations.
Well, one man who wasn't all that happy about it was Western Bulldogs coach Terry Wallace, and he had this to say after the game on the weekend.
Yeah, it's an issue that obviously I've got to be very careful with. Taking away the player and club involved, realistically, it's something that's got to be questioned, got to be looked at. The fact that I had a player playing last Saturday evening and was in a position where he was cited, and if found guilty, which we don't know yet, found guilty, I wouldn't expect to have him the following week. It just seems strange to me that somebody was cited from something that happened last Saturday night, there hasn't been a result by the following Saturday. I'm not bucketing anything there, but it's just something that needs to be tidied up within the game as well. It just seems strange that some are done prior to that stage and some aren't.
So would you advocate a sort of cut-off point throughout the course of the week? Would you say that, say, if nothing's done by Wednesday midday, it's too late for it to be done at all?
Absolutely. Look, you know, evidence has got to be gathered. I understand and am aware that it was, you know, a Western Australian incident, which makes it far more difficult, you know, and take all that into consideration. But surely, you know, I mean, if we had the call from the AFL that there was no charge to be laid, well, I don't have any, look, there's no problem with that. That's no charge. That's, you know, the decision's been made under that sort of manner. But, you know, there needs to be a decision or a cut-off point at some stage.
Western Bulldogs coach Terry Wallace there talking about the situation with Craig O'Brien. He wasn't up in arms about it, but I think he just wanted a resolution of the situation and put some rules in place.
Well, they won the game, fortunately. I mean, it'd be interesting. I actually spoke to him on Friday and he was up in arms about it then, and I said, well, no, I didn't say, but he doubted whether he'd be saying stuff if they'd lost, and I think that's probably the right tack to take, otherwise it's seen as sour grapes, but a very valid point.
All right, well, Gary Lyon's going to be joining us very shortly, the Melbourne skipper, and also we'll be crossing to Adelaide. And in case you're worried about the fact that the game between North Melbourne and Carlton is on at the MCG tonight, this is going to be a score-free zone. We're not going to mention it for those of you who want to watch the football a little bit later on tonight, so we won't be mentioning the scores, and the game has been underway for some 5 minutes or so. Pretty wet night at the MCG. We've got lots more to come. Hope you can stay with us here on Football Feedback.
Saturday, 1:45, live and exclusive from the MCG, the Western Bulldogs go to war with Richmond. Can Chris Grant lead the determined Doggies to an unlikely victory?
Magnificent goal!
Then Sunday, 1:45, more live footy when Hawthorn take on the merged might of the Brisbane Lions. What a weekend for footy fans, but only on Sports AFL Channel 13. Live, a pay TV exclusive every weekend.
The shot across the face of goal, and there it is.
The Ericsson Cup features Australian soccer at its electrifying best.
Superb bit of work there, and it's a goal.
Heart-stopping plays, outstanding skills, sensational goals. You'll see it all in Sports Australia's live coverage of the Ericsson Cup.
That's a great goal. It is the equaliser.
Perth meets South Melbourne 9 Saturday. UTS Olympic play Marconi 6:30 Sunday on Sports Australia.
Pernell Whitaker, Oscar De La Hoya, World Championship boxing at its very best, live from Caesars Palace, Sunday, April 13 on Main Attraction. Be there for the knockout and the best seat in the house, ringside. Order on the Main Attraction hotline, 1300 300 666. You'll be billed on your Optus Vision monthly account. The Golden Boy or Sweet Pea. Main Attraction, Channel 41.
You're right. The way to do it is take the body out and the head's gonna fall. You gotta rip. You gotta dig.
I just did an interview for TV and I said that David Pittman was the most pathetic ruckman I've ever seen in my entire life in footy. So when you've got that sort of effort coming in the middle, which is pretty harsh on the kid, but something's got to be squared up with this football club, is that when that effort's like that and gets absolutely dominant, it's pretty hard for anybody playing out there. There's a wrong decision by the umpire. But the truth of the matter is, you look around the ground and all their heads went down. The ball goes down to Richardson, kicks a goal, and all of a sudden they kick the next four. I mean, that's pathetic. One decision can't change a football game. Only if you let it.
Kick to full forward, back to Richmond. Richardson.
I'm telling you what I saw and what I observed. Now, if someone, hey, I was mentioned many times as a player and as a coach. You blokes will go and make assessments on me, right? I did as a player, good and bad. Now, if you can't cop that and you play poorly, I don't understand what we're here for. I wonder whether the Adelaide Football Club know this is for real. I mean, this is absolutely for keeps, this competition, and their careers are for keeps. You don't get it back.
Malcolm Blight with plenty to say at the MCG on the weekend. We welcome you back to Football Feedback. It must have been important. We were equating Oscar Wilde, John F. Kennedy and even Moses there. Moses Malone, that was. But it has been a big story and we'll be talking more about that in a moment. But, first of all, let's welcome the man who is currently stuck on 199 games. We thought it was going to be 200, Gary Lyon.
Yes, and didn't we all, Pete? I must say I apologise to all the Melbourne supporters first and foremost because it wasn't a furphy Derm. I know some people thought that I knew on Thursday night, but it was a very, very late decision and that's the way it goes, I guess.
Must have been shattering for you, really.
Oh, look, it was probably one of the hardest decisions I've had to make. I mean, I've missed games before, but there was a bit of a build-up because it was my 200th. They had a lot of people coming to the game. Even the cheer squad had gone on an enormous amount of work, all those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, you've got to make the decision based on what's right for the footy club. So I did that, and I had people flying in to watch the game, and I wasn't playing.
It really must have been shattering when you found out Tuesday evening you weren't playing.
Oh, you are a sceptic. I actually, I got up Friday morning after training Thursday night, and I was pretty sore, and I thought, I went out an ultrasound at 12 o'clock, and that was all over. So that was it, Derm. 12
keep
o'clock
selling
Friday.
It, mate. You're doing well. You're holding a straight face.
I sell cars too. That is a God-honest truth. Thank you.
Now, you've got Sydney this week, I think.
We got Sydney on Friday night, so I don't think too many people will fly up there to watch the 200th game if and when I get there. But,
are you going to give a cheer squad a hand to do the run-through again?
I really should dig into my pocket.
I reckon you should.
A couple up,
I reckon you should.
I'm endeavouring to get in touch with them and square off there. Yeah.
Endeavouring what? They're so hard to find, aren't they?
All right, that's enough.
Cool,
look, you can carry this on throughout the show. Well, they've got the most pathetic ruckman in the history of the game. They turn it up when a free kick is paid against them, and they reckon that league footy is little more than a kick in the park. So said Adelaide coach Malcolm Blight after their defeat at the hands of Richmond on the weekend. Well, to tell us how the club and indeed the city has reacted, we're joined live from Football Park in Adelaide by the General Manager of Footy Operations for the Crows in John Reid. John, thanks very much for your time. I would imagine there have been a few headlines in Adelaide over there today.
Yeah, it's kept the media pretty busy. They've, they didn't, they usually find something on a Monday, but I think it was plenty for them today.
Well, even apart from the fact that Malcolm gave David Pittman a spray, he also gave the footy club a spray. What's the footy club's attitude?
Oh, I think you've got to take it in the whole context of what was said. I mean, Malcolm, when he talked about the Adelaide Footy Club, he's saying that, at times when things have got really hard, maybe they haven't handled it as well as they should. And I think that's a criticism that we have to accept, and I think that's something we're trying to improve. And I think Malcolm will be the person to improve us in that area.
Now, John, what about the situation of David Pittman? Obviously, reading between the lines, cutting to the chase, reading between the lines, it seems like Malcolm has been forced to play him, that he wouldn't choose him because he said he became the #1 ruckman. People in Adelaide have suggested that. I don't think he is. Has he been forced to play by other people selecting the side other than Malcolm against his wishes?
Oh, Dermott, I think you know Malcolm well enough. That just doesn't happen. I mean, again, and I think Malcolm will clear that tomorrow, but in real terms, there was one word missing from Malcolm's statement. I mean, he was asked a question about the first quarter, and his answer was relative to the first quarter, and unfortunately in his comments about David, he left out the word effort in that particular statement, and of course it reads quite differently. And David and Malcolm have had a good chat today. I mean, Malcolm has got a regard for David. He's earned credibility in his footy time, but the way that came over, leaving out if he was referring to what actually happened in the first quarter.
John, can I just suggest though, like here written, I've written it down here, his quote there, as we saw a second ago, was the most pathetic ruckman ever seen. Honestly, where does the word effort fit in there? Most pathetic effort ruckman?
No, most pathetic ruck effort was what was meant to be said, Dermott. So, I mean, look, Malcolm...
Well, you can't skip around it. I actually feel quite sorry for the boy. Like, I don't think he's a half-bad player, but I really feel like this is just... It's almost immoral coming from your own football club.
Well, I mean, as I say, David and Malcolm have sat down and had a chat about that. I'm certain Malcolm will resolve that publicly tomorrow, but I think Malcolm himself feels that the way that it was said, and he accepts that that's what he said, the words didn't quite come out the way that he wanted, mate. That's as simple as that.
John, just the spirit around the club to gathering ahead training tonight, can you feel that the players, because I often think in this situation the players can sort of band together, almost us against him mentality. Do you feel that might be the case?
Oh, look, I'm certain that, you know, the players in the club have, you know, feel for David the way they said, but I think the more importantly, what else was said to the players by Malcolm and the fact that he's setting levels that, you know, before haven't been set in this club, have been too easy, accepted defeat in some of these areas or accepted mediocrity. He's just saying, well, no, I'm not prepared to accept that. There's the level we've got to get to, and when we get to that, that's when we'll accept it. Now, I think that's more important than worrying about the other issues.
John, if people there accept that the footy culture is in such desperate need of change, why has it taken 6 years to happen?
Well, I can't answer all that. I've only been here 12 months, but I mean, it's a situation that, yeah, I mean, it is a new football club and it's taken some time, but it's not necessarily the culture of the club. We're talking about the players, and again, I think that that's all Malcolm is saying. Look, at the end of the day, players have to be responsible and accountable for what their actions are on the field, and I think he just pointed that out to them yesterday.
Do you think enough Adelaide players have an inflated opinion of their own worth?
I tend to think that that's something that is improving, that there's not anywhere near as players, and it's, I don't. This is one of the things that I get probably pretty annoyed about, is the fact that I don't think it's the players or the Adelaide Footy Club that's rated them as highly as they had. I think it's come from other areas that the Adelaide Footy Club's had this thing that they overrate themselves. I mean, the Adelaide Footy Club tries very hard not to do that.
So that's coming from the football public then, is it?
I think it's really from the way that this thing evolved in Adelaide, and you have to be over here, quite frankly, to see how it did evolve.
Well, doesn't that then make it that much harder for a club to change that if it's out of their control?
Oh, I think now, no, I don't. I think that the club is also in its infancy, found that difficult to come to terms with. I think now they are older, they've now got some wiser heads around the place, and I think that they're doing a pretty good job of keeping things in perspective. I don't think our players have got any bigger opinions than of themselves than most other footballers around Australia.
Now, John, obviously you're going to look at next week as the big comeback game and hopefully put a win on the board, but obviously teams look long-term about bolstering their ranks. You look to the draft all the time. So therefore, will David Pittman be at the Adelaide Crows Football Club next year?
Oh, look, that's something I haven't even considered, Dermott. I mean, I think that's a... you know, you're entitled to ask that question, but quite frankly, I don't think that's a realistic question at this point in time.
John, what about how the public received it? Do you get the feeling that the perception is they support Malcolm in his statements, or do you think they might rally behind the players?
Oh, no, I think that the general the response has been quite good, as usual in the media. On most of the radio, you've got one bloke who supports it, the other person doesn't, so they can get their ratings up. I mean, that's just par for the course. In general terms, I think that most people and the media themselves have given it support. I think most people agree, and I think Malcolm would also agree with this. The way that it came out in the end with David is not how he would have liked it to have been, and he'll rectify that tomorrow.
Do you agree, John, that Malcolm's probably the only guy who could have got away with doing this? I mean, it's probably something Robert Shaw wanted to do, but just felt as an outsider he couldn't.
I wouldn't say there's the only person to do it, but I think there's limited people that would be able to do it, and you know, there are other good coaches around, I'm certain, that would fit into that category.
John, is there a case maybe for putting back the coaches' media conference in a situation like that, where the coach comes out, he's obviously hot under the collar, and maybe does say something that he later regrets?
I don't think there's been a coach around who hasn't made that mistake, and I'm certain it'll probably happen again, but I think it's also you know, everybody learns from that. I'm certain Malcolm will choose maybe some of that wording if it ever happened again, a little bit more carefully. But I mean, one word has changed the whole context. Again, you know, you've quoted Dermott, you know, what it was said, but I mean, also should have quoted the question. And again, it was said all in context of the first quarter, and that's what Malcolm was referring to David's performance. And David and Malcolm have discussed that at some length today. There
were some reports, though, this morning, John, that some Adelaide officials knew what Malcolm was going to say before he said it. I mean, was it totally spontaneous, or was there some idea beforehand of what he was going to say?
No, that's absolute rubbish. I mean, I even heard today someone make the comment that it was premeditated from the point of view of it was even worked out during the summer that this would be done. I mean, that's just typical media making up a story out of it. I mean, Malcolm... No, typical. Well, you blokes aren't bad at it either, so that's your job and we accept that. But at the end of the day, no, Malcolm, he was very determined to do well on the weekend. He was bitterly disappointed with our start and bitterly disappointed with our finish. Saw some good sides in between, but what he's saying to the players is that you just don't walk away from those events feeling as though you've done a reasonable job. I mean, we've done that, you know, that's been accepted in the past. He's not accepting. He's setting new levels for this club to reach for, and that's what it's all about. That's why he's been appointed as coach.
So, John, this coming game, does Pittman go down as injured with the ankle or omitted this coming week?
No, let's clear that up again. You know, he has got a calf injury. He's been treated for it tonight. He came off for his performance. He did have a calf injury, mate. David accepts this himself. He did a bit of a calf. Probably should have said something about it, didn't, but came off. He didn't come off because of injury, but he genuinely does have a calf injury at the moment.
That's been around for a while, that injury too, hasn't it?
Well, he's had it a couple of times before, so I mean, but he made the decision, and he's man enough to wear that, David. He accepted that he should have stayed out. We were pretty light on for tall blokes. He felt he may have been able to get over on top of it. It didn't work that way. I'm certain now he'd regrets it. I bet he'd wish he'd said it when it happened. But at the end of the day, if David's not playing on the weekend, it'll either be injury or we'll say omitted. We won't beat around the bush. It'll be exactly whatever reason it is for.
Now, John, obviously I wasn't at the match, but it seems that the performance in context may not have been all that bad. Do you think maybe the standard that Malcolm set these guys, do you think, first of all, it's a reasonable standard, and are they capable of playing to it?
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, the game was very winnable, Gary. I mean, it was a line ball job, you know, at about the 15, 16-minute mark of the last quarter, and I think that's what got Malcolm pretty irate, was that it was there to be won if we'd continued to do what we'd been doing for the previous two quarters. So, you know, I think, no, he's not setting standards that are unachievable, and, you know, I accept that, you know, there are times when you can do that, but I don't think Malcolm is. I think he's quite within his rights to accept that we should have won that game.
John, one final question. I suppose you thought when Port Adelaide came into the competition some of the heat might be taken off the Crows, but you're back on the front page again.
Well, look, I did say to Malcolm, it's been sensational for the last 3 or 4 months. We wouldn't even know we were around, which has suited us beautifully after having had that sort of thrust on you for all those years. But he sort of remedied that very quickly, I suggest, on the weekend. But hopefully it'll get back to normality next week, and Port Adelaide will be everybody's flavour of the month.
Thanks for your time, John. We appreciate your candour on this issue. It's a controversial one, and we thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
General Manager of Footy Operations from the Adelaide Crows, John Reid. Well, interesting to hear that maybe Malcolm was, well, not misquoted, but left one important word out.
I think that's a bit of a soft cop-out. I think Malcolm genuinely does regret saying it's not unlike the Don Scott scenario when he went coaching in Adelaide and he only lasted 6 weeks.
Oh, I actually accept that, Derm. I reckon that's a reasonable explanation. I know you're sceptical on this as well, but...
You're going to bag the media too, eh?
No, indeed I'm not, but I think it's fair to suggest it may be, because it does seem an extraordinary bag.
But he's such a clear thinker, Malcolm Blight. He's such an intelligent, astute football thinker. I don't see how a man can get that wrong.
Well, if he was hoping to say that's the most pathetic effort I've seen from a ruckman in my entire life...
Pretty damning still, but...
Yeah, for that first quarter, well, it's fair to suggest that you've just omitted the word effort. All of a sudden it becomes a bigger statement than what perhaps was intended.
The other thing too is that Blighty's got a bit of a history of doing this. Like, I can remember the 1990 first round replay of the 89 grand final, and you blokes beat them by over 100 points. We all went into the rooms after the game to be told that there was about 7 or 8 Geelong players who he named who would never play again. Now, obviously they did, but I mean, it hits him pretty hard when he's not happy.
He did that with Austin McCrabb too. He wouldn't let Austin join the three-quarter time huddle.
Stand in the corner with the dunce cap on. Who says coaches treat players like school children, huh?
Yeah, well, but he's such a clear football thinker. He's almost a visionary. How can I use? I'm getting prophecies in there now, but I can't understand how he could make that error.
Do you think? How quickly do you think he would have spoken to Pittman after the comment?
Well, I don't think. I think he would have walked away from it and thought, "God, what have I said?" But look, just quickly on that decision, which John was talking about, when he didn't actually say it, but a lot of Adelaide people believed, Malcolm especially, that when that tackle that was laid on Ryan by Bickley in the centre, and a lot of people differ from me, but if the ball breaks free in the tackle, it's play on. That's what happened, and. Then he slung Ryan to the ground, which puts him out of the contest. It was a legitimate free kick. I would have loved to have seen the underdog, Adelaide, get up, and I was hoping the free kick was going to go the other way, to which it did, but it wasn't there. It was a Richmond free kick. There is no bones about it. By the letter of the law book, it was there.
Well, I'd like to get your opinion on this, Gary, and yours too, Rowan, because I've heard so many differing opinions on that decision. What did you think? Was it play on, a free kick? What?
It was really the first time I saw it, and I probably need to have another look at it again, but it appeared to me that it was a free kick, first of all, but having listened to Dermott then and maybe needing another look at it, might have been right. All
right, we might have another look at it in a minute. Rowan, what did you think?
Well, who am I? But I mean, I hate to disagree with you guys, but I reckon it should have been holding the ball. It was a good tackle, and I thought that rather than the ball spilling free, I thought that he just let it go. That to me is in possession.
I thought it spilled free, and if you know the movement of the body, he had two hands and they started to come up. I reckon he was about to kick. He ran 3 or 4 paces for movement, and look, if you tuck it under your arm and try and...
But the truth of the matter is,
I reckon he was going for a kick then.
Well, I think he might have been knocked out. The ball might have been knocked out of his hands.
Yep. And he was effectively put out of the contest to go in for the loose ball after the balls. Watch this. Now, Gary, you'll be able to tell here. See, 2 hands like that, he was going to kick it. There's no doubt about that. It's not free.
But they were paying that last year, weren't they? When guys were getting grabbed as they were about to kick.
You're dead right. They did pay it last year, but after about round 6, Gary, you'll verify it went out the door.
Well, therein lies the problem. I mean, the interpretation can differ from week to week.
But that's if you tuck it under the arm and you try and take someone on. He's got it, he's had 2 steps, and he hasn't known where Bickley's come from, and he's gone to kick it.
Don't you have to make some allowance for Bickley not knowing where the ball is when he's grabbing the guy in the tackle?
You should, but that's tough luck. That's tough luck. He's been blindsided, he's tackled, he's slipped around the back, he can't see the ball. You've got to assume and have that awareness. That's just the rules of the game.
Would we be making a lot of this decision if it happened at the 15-minute mark of the first quarter rather than the 15-minute mark of the last quarter?
Nothing whatsoever, probably.
But Adelaide, we had, with Triple M, we had Ricky Olrenshaw down boundary line side, and he called up to the main commentary position and he said Adelaide are going to win this game in a couple of minutes. He said they're running over the top of him. A couple of minutes later, that decision came up. The ball went straight to Richmond. They kicked a goal and they were just, you could hear the air go out of the balloon right then and there.
All right, well, we've already established the fact that Malcolm Blight wasn't exactly wrapped in Adelaide's performance in general. Well, his opposition coach, Robert Walls, had a few kind things to say about the Crows.
Look, I thought Adelaide were terrific, the way they kept coming back at us. Like, we got 40 points up, I think it was, and then it was down to 1 point. So that's full credit to them. Obviously, Malcolm's playing young blokes and giving them every opportunity, and young blokes never let you down with enthusiasm. You know, they might make mistakes, skill errors, and experience-wise, but there was plenty of enthusiasm and bubble there, and you know, Jarman got going there at one stage and got a fair bit of ball. Yeah, he's going to give young blokes a go, and they'll be a developing team.
Do you think they're going to get their quota of wins in Melbourne?
Oh, who knows? Like, you know, interstate teams winning in Melbourne, it's pretty hard. I know that.
I suppose Blighty's comments might have come as something of a shock, but you knew that Robert Walls wasn't going to come out and say, oh, they were pathetic, they were terrible. But they did, as he said, they got to within a point, and maybe this man was the difference. Matthew Richardson, wasn't he sensational?
Very good early and very good late. Both times when the match was really in the balance. Admittedly, his efforts through the second and third quarter probably contributed to Adelaide coming back into the match. But see, that's when Pittman was on, and I think if you base your assumption on the big man getting caught under the ball like that, that's pathetic. I mean, I don't think that's that bad. He just tried to get back and he got the knee in the middle of the spine. But Richardson, he's the hardest bloke in the league to match up, Gary.
Yeah, he plays unconventionally as well, Dim. I mean, for a 6'6" to be the quickest runner over 3 or 4K and also over 100 metres is a pretty amazing stat. I just wonder, you at the game, if you were an umpire, would you have given him 3 Brownlow votes?
No, because, look, I thought, here you go, here, like I gave him 3 votes the week before and he had less of the ball. I just thought a lot of his kicks he was getting on running backwards when Richmond were winning the ball through the centre. Without trying to be derogatory, like Wayne Carey, relies on the midfield winning the ball they've already done the hard work. You run back towards the goal, you receive the goods, the fruits of their labour. Whereas when he runs to the ball, he takes the pressure off the midfield, and the spill balls, the error balls, the balls kick forward under pressure, he's a target. Definitely gave him 2 votes, but not 3.
I'll have 100 with you that he has 3 votes for round 2. 6 marks in the last quarter, 3 goals. Right in the back of the umpy.
That's probably what they said about Greg Williams, that game back in '93, the 44 possessions.
That was against Melbourne. I didn't think he was that impressive.
All right, well,
the umpires think that way, but that's right. That's outstanding, but not the best.
We'll pull out that piece of tape at the end of the season after Brownlow night, and it could be your shout or your shout. We'll find out. Well, Richmond were impressive, 28-point winners. We've already heard Robert Wall's opinion of the opposition. Let's hear what he had to say about his side, and he still thinks there's some improvement left in the Tigers.
Knights is out for a while and Bullis missed today. Obviously those 2 can help us. They would be inclusions in your 18, but beyond that, the improvement that we've got to come with our decision making and skill, that's the thing that we're pretty excited about, because we haven't played near our full potential in the last 2 weeks, nowhere near it.
Well, that certainly is some bad news for other sides if the Tigers have some improvement left in them, because they have looked very impressive at this early stage.
Well, I guess the important thing is last year early on they lost a few of the close ones. They've now won 2 that could have gone either way. So, you know, it's all you need sometimes, isn't it?
Plenty of highlights from Richmond on the weekend. Plenty of highlights from all of the sides in round 2. Let's take a look at the very best of the best.
Yeah, well, it may have been a bit of a bleak night for the D's, but this grab from David Neitz, that gave them something to cheer about.
Take the knock.
Yes, unfortunately the big Sav was on fire. This is just 1 of 10 for the night.
Look at this.
Unfortunately for us.
It's his night.
He wasn't bad in the air either. This is the grab of the night.
Flyers.
Propelling 110 kgs up like that.
Not only the big fellas, but look at Chris Naish here, taking one of the biggest against the Crows.
Good catch. And there have been a few players harder at it this season than Tiger youngster Joel Bowden. This bone-crunching tackle paved the way for big man Justin Charles.
He might kick a big one here.
Didn't he enjoy it?
Whooshka!
Good kid, actually.
And just another day at the office, Doom, for the mighty Matty Richardson.
Just a fair athlete. And against the odds, Geelong overcame West Coast with play like this from Lee Colbert.
Well, he was jumping high. Recruit Tim Hargraves was producing the little 1%ers that often win you a game.
And Derek Hall this time from the back of the pack.
That is a terrific grab.
They were at Optus Oval, it was Libba's day.
Kelly went without it. Libba went in hard.
Just falls in your hand some days.
When you're having the good ones. And Chris Grant, he was terrific again, and plenty of good aerial work.
Grant! MOD! Great grab!
Yeah, and Fremantle worked very hard against Hawthorn. Daniel Bandy caps off this great play with another Docker major.
Nicely done, and again, looping hand pass. Bandy turns around, kicks, goal.
A bit of ability for a big bloke, and moments of brilliance for, like this from Quentin Leach.
Missed it, Leach. Oh, nicely done.
Yeah, but the Dockers didn't have things all their own way. Great chase down.
Great footy. A couple of bounces.
And under the piercing Gabberson, Justin Lepich, well, he's on fire here.
One bounce. Centering kick in towards goal. He flicks it towards goal and pops through a beauty.
It was a bit of a cakework for the Lions, but there was the odd fierce contest, and the little man gets up first.
And Port Adelaide's tough initiation continued. Bomber sharpshooter Mark McCurry showed them the way with this clinical finish.
Has kicked it.
They can finish it.
And the cocky eyes only for the footy.
Standing underneath it.
There was a good grab.
There it was, the very best of the best from round 2, and we spoke about Brownlow votes just a few moments ago. Well, do you think you'd be able to give Brownlow votes to a fellow who had 2 kicks, 1 mark, 1 hand pass and 1 tackle? Well, he was nearly Footscray's best, and we spoke of Libba, and this was a sensational performance on Paul Kelly on the weekend.
Yeah, they reckon he almost ran into the what do you call it, onto the bus stop with him when Paul Kelly had to have a break. But they're a bit upset, the Swannies. They reckon Kelly's come off with scratches everywhere. I think he had his Freddy Krueger mitts on the weekend.
I just can't. I really can't have that. I mean, Libba's obviously done a very good job, And all of a sudden the taggers are back in focus, the on-ball taggers, but you as an old forward, Derm, and myself as a getting the old
You get a tagger
forward,
every week.
Every week you get a tagger in the forward line. I mean, there's nothing different. You got man on man. They're that used to having a good run, these on-balls, running around without a direct opponent. The minute they got someone chasing them around, they cry foul. I mean, we put up with it every day, Derm.
It's very true, and every coach in the league knows this. You'll never find many taggers doing well in their own club best and fairest, because the coaches know how tough it is for the situation you just mentioned.
It's one of the surprising things with this particular duel, though, that you know, even taggers seem to be getting more possessions these days. You've got your Anthony Stevens, blokes like that. They regularly get over 20 a game. Yeah, but these guys, you know, what did Kelly have, 5 and Libba had 2 or something like that?
Well, a lot of those taggers actually go by the theory, like a Chris Bond. He's developed into a very good player, but played on say a Greg Williams, he'll take him to the ball, take him right to the vicinity, a snatch away, a pat away, butter up, get it himself, and get a lot of possessions himself.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they're a lot more offensive now by nature, taggers, I think. Often they set themselves early to get on top, and then they tend to play off them and try and get the star player to chase them as well. But that was interesting. I mean, that's a one-off, only 5 and 4 possessions.
I actually didn't think that Libba could cover the same ground as Paul Kelly, so he's lifted his work ethic there for sure.
That is a very interesting comment on the Brownlow too, because he's a former winner. That will really be a good test for the umpires. Do they appreciate the defensive aspects of the game?
At the end of the year, umpires, they're clever.
I'm not answering that.
No, they're come on, really.
Righto, well, it was a terrific performance by Libba, and after the match we caught up with him in the change rooms where he was having a very well-deserved rest.
I look at it as probably a best on ground for the team, and that's very, very important to me. And I think it should be important to every player at Footscray at the Western Bulldogs, because team football is what it's all about. And I think if I can go out and do the job for my teammates, and if the players can help me out, which like they did today, I think it goes all in good stead for the season. I mean, possessions are great and whatever, but you know, just being able to do a job and beat my man. And I think in football, if you can beat your opponent, if 12 or 13 blokes beat their opponent on the day, I think you've just about won the game of footy.
Tony Liberatore, who played a sensational game on Paul Kelly. There seems to be some suggestion we might hear a little bit more of that, because Kelly did have to go to the blood bin at some stage. There's a bit of a whisper that it might go a bit further.
Yeah, I think there's an investigation happening, but you'd be a bit worried if they come up with anything. I mean, really, it's as the boys said before, it was just a good tagging job. And
good tagging job. He's lacerated him.
Oh, good laceration.
How would that be? You go out there with the old blood capsules, Gary, and you run up next to yourself and smear it over your shoulders. He's bleeding. Off you go, Gary. Get cleaned up.
Didn't you try that in one go?
Yeah, but I used real blood.
Now listen, Malcolm Blight wasn't the only coach on the angry pills over the weekend. Terry Wallace, an old teammate of yours, normally a pretty placid, easy-going sort of bloke.
Yeah, it was almost out of character, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, he wasn't too happy with the Herald Sun's Jeff Poulter after the game, and after something that Jeff had written in a game preview, and this is what happened in the media conference after the match.
Can I start first, please? Jeff, I was absolutely disappointed and disgraced with the article this morning in the press. You know, such things as the operators in the grounds new scoreboard, the libel that goes off, and another disappointing performance here, and they'll be locking the gates to keep the fans in. I think we've given value for money in both our games so far. We have a responsibility to try and get supporters along to games. After round 1, to be having that sort of an article in the paper, you have a responsibility as much as what we do to have people coming through the gates and be reporting things like on a basis of how they are. I mean, that's just another disappointing performance here, and they will be locking the gates to keep the fans in. That is trash. That is well, it's a throwaway line that people read. It's a throwaway line that people read. Absolute trash, Jeff. Absolute trash. You want to be let into our rooms, we don't see any more of this crap, or you won't be in.
Jerry, enormous relief, mental relief from you and everybody to get over the line. A great contest, wasn't it?
Jeff, if you don't shut up, just go out, please.
And obviously angry Terry Wallace there in the rooms. Now, I'll go to the journo first. Rowan, what's your opinion of this?
I reckon we ought to start getting danger money very, very shortly. It's just getting too difficult. Well, look, I've got to say, I mean, Terry Wallace has done some fantastic things with the media already. I just thought that was a little surprising, given that, I mean, it was a fairly flippant throwaway line, and one that I must plead guilty to using myself on occasion. So, I mean,
there has been occasions though, Jeff, I've actually thought of writing a weekly column each week of actually giving votes to columnists for their prior articles of the week. So 3 votes to that, 2 votes to him in the Age, and 1 vote to him in the whatever, and the worst on ground him from such and such. You know, just
drop to the local suburban rag.
Educate you blokes that, you know, everything you do say in the paper gets read by people, and even if it's not true, even if it is a throwaway line, somebody reads it and somebody believes it.
I do think, though, that if he's going to get that upset about something like that, he's going to be throwing an awful lot of journos out of the rooms before the end of the season.
Well, it might be the idea he mightn't have to turn up to one by the end of the year.
You're a member of the media now. You're not saying much. Whose side are you on?
I just think it's really interesting to see, what motivates coaches and what sort of ammunition they do take notice of. I mean, I've had 2 coaches in my AFL career. One was very conscious of what went on in the press and was prepared to cut every little derogatory point out and use in his favour. The other one, who I've got now, couldn't give a hoot what goes on in the press, and is
hey, he writes for us.
Well, it's not to say he doesn't appreciate the press, but as far as the us against them, the press against us, they're against us, I mean, it's really interesting, I reckon. And Terry Wallace obviously sees this as a way of stirring the emotions.
He's used that in pre-match, you can tell that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt.
Under John Northey, would you guys have known which journos you were supposed to hate and which ones were all right? Or?
I name names, if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, the articles were highlighted. They're blown up about 10 feet high and pasted around the room.
No wonder we've got such a good reputation.
All right, well, Terry Wallace's opposition coach was Rodney Eade on the weekend. And just like last year, Sydney has started with 2 losses. Of course, they went on to make the grand final last year. This is what Rocket had to say after the match on the weekend.
And we certainly had our chances in the end, but couldn't take them, and that's the way it goes.
Where do you think you lost it, right?
Probably just our intensity probably wasn't up to what we expect from our players.
The Liver Kelly duel, how would you rate Liver's game? Because we took a bloke who was probably your driving force and didn't allow him to have any influence.
Did you answer your own question? For 3 quarters were okay. The period in the second quarter, a little bit in the third. A few of our guys I didn't think performed up to their normal standards, including Paul Kelly. I think it's maybe 6 or 7 blokes at vital stages that scored 4 or 5 goals from us not giving a proper contest.
And you're finding with those senior blokes out that you're expecting a little bit more from a couple of guys last year who might have been second-tier players.
Well, they've got to take the jump up.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And that's what good teams do, good clubs do that. Carlton have got injuries and blokes step into the breach, so... And West Coast and Essendon and these teams have consistently done that, and that's what we've got to aim for.
Yeah, when you look at the talent that's missing from the side at the moment, the likes of Lockett and Bays and Roos, well, it's not surprising they're struggling a bit.
I actually thought, when I was playing, obviously no matter who you play, the hardest thing to do was go interstate and win. And if you did, and you were ever under pressure on an interstate game, you saw 2 alternatives, 2 kids or 1 senior bloke, you'd nearly always kick to the senior fellow. He'd have the presence of mind to take it over the boundary, give you that calming influence. There were just no senior players in the Swans side on the weekend, and I dare say had they had another bloke who was, 30 years of age, a Roos or someone like that, they would have won.
They've had a shocking pre-season with injuries. I mean, Stafford, Chapman, there's a whole legion of them, but you should point out, they lost their first 2 last year and ended up in the grand final.
Here's my call for the big improver of the year, Stafford. He will be in the top 3 or 4 ruckmen in the league by the end of the year.
It's not a disastrous start. Losing the West Coast over there is... You probably wouldn't pencil that one in.
No.
And maybe this one they may have, but as the cards have fallen, it would have been a pretty big...
But 3 losses on the trot constitutes an official crisis in the AFL these days.
Well, let's hope that's the case. We play it Friday night.
All right, well, it's time to thank Rowan Connolly, the chief football writer from the Sunday Age. Thanks again, Rowan, and make sure you write things nice about the footy clubs and the coaches this week.
Absolutely, we love them all.
And our thanks too to 3OW, who provided the audio of Malcolm Blight's controversial comments a little bit earlier on in the program. Well, we've still got a lot more to talk about, including Collingwood's great form. We'll be catching up with Scotty Russell very shortly on Football Feedback.
My turn. A footy show the likes of which you've never smelt before. Footy Focus, 6:30 Thursday on Sports AFL.
He's got the pace. Plenty of space. What about the flick?
Season 97's underway with the best club rugby in the world, the Hahn Cup.
They must score.
16 teams battling it out in a supercharged pre-season knockout championship. The Hahn Cup, live and exclusive only on Sports Australia.
Things have changed since Roger Merritt made his debut in the big time. That was back in the days when the AFL was the VFL, when there were 12 Victorian teams and no Brisbane Bears. That was back in 1978. Big Rog was Raw Rog, an 18-year-old farmer's son lured to the Bombers of Windy Hill. He was big, his physical presence was imposing, but few would have imagined he'd still be playing almost 2 decades later. And by 1988, he was just the player the Bears needed. While others came and went, Merritt stayed. Through 9 seasons and more than 150 games with Brisbane, more than 300 overall. The former Victorian captain became Queensland captain. The Essendon Centurion became a Brisbane Centurion. He's now more Bear than Bomber. More games, more goals. Roger Merritt, an adopted Bear and the Gabba's favourite adopted Queenslander.
Making in the NBA, you need offense.
Gary Payton lead pass, Temple, goal!
You've got to be